It's Black History Month, and every year during Black History Month, of course, I'm trying to, why do we have a black, of course, I'm a white guy, I can't say this, but, why do we have a black history? I thought black history was American history. I mean, some of the greatest discoveries, greatest inventions, railroad safety equipment, all kinds of them, black Americans, they're everywhere. This suggests, that this is another way to drive a wedge to say that, well, you guys had one history, but we had another one. Well, anyway, be that as it may, it is Black History Month, and we like to revisit and set the record straight on stuff, which is why about a week ago, and you've heard this before, I read to you a piece called Why Dr. Martin Luther King Was a Republican. It was written by Francis Rice, who is a noted black historian. Well, I am proud and privileged to say that I have Francis Rice on the air with me right now. Good morning, Francis.
Good morning, Quinn.
I am just absolutely delighted to make your acquaintance because you're such a brilliant mind. And, I read this just the other day, and immediately I get an email from a guy, "You're a racist. You're distorting history. Everybody knows that it wasn't the same then as it is now. The Republicans and the Democrats, they were kind of like switched, they were different parties altogether, and now you're trying to judge yesterday by today's standards." And could you put that to rest?
Absolutely. In the Democratic Party's unrelenting effort to switch their racist past onto the blacks Republicans, they are using the mantra, the parties switch sides. It does not even make common sense to believe that the racist Democrats suddenly rushed into the arms of the Republican Party, especially after Republicans spent nearly 150 years fighting for black civil rights. In fact, the racist Democrats declared they would rather vote for a yellow dog than a Republican because the Republican was and still is the party for blacks.
Well, yes, and I've often pointed out, too, that even as recently as the 1950s and early 60s, there were no Republicans with fire hoses. There were no Republicans with dogs or standing at the schoolhouse door declaring segregation forever. These guys were all Democrats. Absolutely.
From its inception in 1854 as the anti-slavery party, the Republican Party has always been the party of freedom and equality for blacks. As author Micah Shore stated, the Democratic Party is the party of the four S's: slavery, secession, segregation, and now socialism.
Oh, yeah. Amen. Amen to that. Well, now, I am told that blacks voted after the Civil War for 3 decades under Republican control. And then when the Democrats took over, they were the ones that invented the Jim Crow laws and the black codes and all that.
No, absolutely. Democrats first used brutality and discriminatory laws to stop blacks from voting for Republicans. Now they use deception and government handouts to keep blacks from voting for Republicans. In his book, Dreams from My Father, President Barack Obama described what he and other Democrats do to poor blacks as plantation politics.
Really? Then why is he still doing it then?
Because he's a socialist.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad somebody's figured that out. Well, now, you've written a number of articles. You also, let's see, have you written some books as well?
No books, just articles, and I manage the National Black Republican Association's website at www.nbra.info, I-N-F-O. I'm chairman of the National Black Republican Association, and my primary mission is to write articles and set the civil rights record straight and try to get the message out to average Americans, the truth.
Well, as I understand it, too, the Republican Party, the first black senator was a Republican. It was in the 1800s, and the name escapes me here, but I don't think we had a black senator until Obama, did we?
That's correct.
On the Democrat side.
That's correct.
Yeah, so they're about 100 years behind. But it's amazing to me how people accept the idea that the Democrats are the ones that are all in for black people, when in fact they were the ones who really oppressed black people. But when they finally figured out, when it became unfashionable in the 1960s to oppress black people, then they decided, well, wait a minute, there's no currency in this, so instead we'll pander to them. And I would offer that the pandering has done more harm than the oppression.
Oh, absolutely. Just to do a bit of history before we get into that, it was Hiram Rose Revels of Mississippi who was the first black elected as a U.S. Senator starting from 1870 to 1871.
And he was from Mississippi, which is even more remarkable.
Absolutely. And then he was followed by Blanche K. Bruce, also of Mississippi. And then Republican Joseph Rainey of South Carolina was the first black to enter the House of Representatives.
That's right. Well, the distortion of history over the years is really appalling. And, of course, these kids are not learning any of this in their public schools. The public school system is being simply a conveyor belt for Marxism, collectivism, whatever ism you want to call it.
Oh, absolutely. And Democrats have been running black communities for the past 50 years, and the socialist policies of the Democrats have turned those communities into economic and social wastelands. Articles have been written by others, including Raynard Jackson, exposing how groups like the NAACP, the Urban League, and the Congressional Black Caucus are hypocrites because they continue to encourage blacks to vote for Democrats while incredibly blaming Republicans for the devastation in black communities created by Democrats.
Well, I mean, but they continue to keep the public schools in the inner cities to be our worst public schools. I think the literacy rate in the Detroit public schools is something like 29%. As a matter of fact, it's better in Mogadishu than it is in Detroit. And so I guess it's easy to convince people to keep doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result if they're illiterate.
Absolutely. The school system in this country are run by Democrats, by liberals, and the teachers' unions are the main supporters of the Democratic Party, and their mission is to keep blacks poor, angry, ignorant, and voting for Democrats.
Well, it seems to be working because Obama, I think, got 95% of the black vote.
Yeah, he did indeed.
It's very frustrating because now, see, the Republicans say, well, we've got to reach out to Hispanics, we have to reach out to blacks. Well, yeah, but I don't want to do that. But I don't want to become a Democrat to do that because what's in it for blacks if we do the same thing to them that the Democrats are doing?
Yeah, they want government handouts. They have become dependent, and that's the objective of the Democratic Party. And any black person who tries to get off the Democratic Party's economic plantation are denigrated as sellouts, Uncle Tom, house Negroes, and worse. And worse,
yeah. Well, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, I heard a click. I thought I maybe lost you. Before I let you go, I have an idea about how to get rid of welfare and the dependency state. And I don't know if you think this would work or if anybody would be interested or if it would even be possible to pass something like this. But here's my idea. Pass a law that says, as of a date certain, any child born after a date certain will not have any of these programs available to them when they reach 18. Anybody who's on it now can stay on it. Anybody who's born before that, they can stay on it. But as of a date certain, any child born after that date has 18 years to understand that the welfare check is not at the end of his road. And the system would die and nobody get hurt.
Well, absolutely. And the problem is the Republicans have been pushing for welfare reforms for years. In fact, they got Clinton to finally sign a bill in 1996 after he vetoed the measure twice, and it was working.
Oh, but absolutely. That's why Obama had to get rid of it. It was working.
Yeah, exactly. He got rid of welfare reform in his budget and the legislation that was passed after he became president. He killed welfare reform, and Republicans tried to bring this to the attention of the public, but the mainstream media run by Democrats would not broadcast it. Republicans were pushing for school vouchers so that black parents could get their kids out of failing school, or Barack Obama killed that, while he keeps his own children in private schools out of the failed school system that are in these inner cities. So Barack Obama and the Democrats have a deliberate program of trying to keep blacks poor, angry and voting for Democrats.
Well, sure. One of the first things he did when he took office was to get rid of the voucher program in Washington, D.C. for poor black kids. It was heartbreaking to watch these young, a lot of them single mothers, thanks to the wreckage left behind by the Great Society, and they're trying to get a better life for their kid, and along comes Obama. And I would have expected, Earl Faubus to come along and end it, but not Obama. And he
Absolutely.
did. He ended it, and they still vote for him.
Absolutely. And he has created high black employment, the worst in the history of this nation, and they still vote for him. In fact, if Barack Obama, the same person, had been a Republican, these same people who are voting for him would not have supported him.
Oh, no. Well, of course not. So a lot of it has to do with race.
Absolutely. Race and party affiliation. The Democrats have spent the last 50-plus years convincing black Americans that the racism that they are complaining about, past and present, is all the fault of Republicans when it's really the Democrats who are doing it.
So essentially what they've done is they've convinced blacks that freedom is not the solution to the human condition.
Correct.
Well,
and that the government is the solution.
Yeah, right. Frances Rice, thank you. Keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you so much, Quinn.
Thank you. Black historian Frances Rice, who wrote the piece, Why Martin Luther King Jr. Was a Republican. We'll be right back.